The latest patches for Dying Light 2 is now out across all platforms. It's been out for a couple days now for console, which of course brought in the new accessibility options, some HUD changes, improvements to the combat, ragdoll physics. Just like with every other video, I'll leave a link in the description for the full patch notes in case you guys want to look at that for yourself in depth. Just keep in mind these updates do not bring in an FOV slider or a new game plus, two things that people have been asking for the most. We'll tackle the whole idea and the time frame as to when we'll see a new game plus and how that'll work in Dying Light 2, but for today's video I wanted to talk about the grappling hook nerf and of course the correct charm nerf. These are two tweaks that it seems like the majority of people are just completely unhappy with, and it's kind of a no-brainer that a compromise obviously needs to be made. Now for those that don't know, very quickly, the whole grappling hook nerf, what happened was initially you can basically scale any building without having to climb it, as long as it was one of the buildings that your grappling hook can attach to, because there's some in the game that you just can't do it. But if it was a building that you can attach to, you can just zigzag all the way downtown Villador without actually climbing up a single thing. You could have done it with windmills as well, just going to the top immediately in a matter of seconds. Obviously provided as long as your stamina bar was high enough, and you of course had to have your grappling hook completely maxed out in order to do this. But yeah, it was a neat little trick that you didn't really realize you can do until you did it one time, and then you just kind of integrated it into your parkour movement and how you got around. Now it's nowhere near to the same degree. You can kind of zigzag and pull yourself here and there, but you can't abuse it like before, and you can't go as far and cover as vast as a distance as you could have prior to the patch. And I guess the reason behind nerfing it was they wanted the game to be much more realistic, which I get. I do understand that that was the direction that Techland wanted to go with in the sequel, to make the game much more scary, arguably much more realistic. I mean, sure, plenty of people would be more than eager to argue that the game is not more scary or realistic than its predecessor, but I understand that that's where they want to go, and maybe through updates they will achieve that. And on that note, I think it would have made much more sense for them to actually tie in this change to a harder difficulty, right? Maybe tie in a realistic difficulty where, I don't know if this is really feasible, but making the physics quote unquote more realistic, heavier, the parkour's not as floaty, ragdolls aren't as dramatic. You get this grappling hook change where you really can't pull yourself anymore. The correct charm change could have also been applied here too, where it can't be abused. Now for those of you that don't know what the correct charm change was, basically the correct charm was an Easter egg. It was something that when you applied it to a weapon, it repaired up to 500 points of durability on that weapon that you applied it to, and you can basically do that indefinitely. So your weapon that you apply it to never breaks, allowing you to use the best weapons for as long as you want. After this patch, it's been dropped from 500 points to 300, and it costs 666 scrap to now craft. So not only is it less effective, but you basically have to break down an entire car to be able to craft it. Now, Mon-Wed actually commented on this, which if you guys don't know who that is, that's the lead game designer over at Techland. He basically said, "I hope you understand it's an Easter egg and not the official repair mechanic." Contrary to what he knew, it was nerfed, and he'll be looking into trying to restore it and make it much more meaningful. Sounds great, right? If you're not keeping a close eye on everything, then yes, that sounds great. Then maybe we'll get it patched sooner rather than later. Well, considering the grappling hook change and the correct charm change were never listed in the patch notes, and all the way back in February, when someone tweeted out to Mon-Wed on the correct charm and how it worked, he mentioned that it's working as intended and will not be patched. So it kind of makes you wonder what happened. Personally speaking, I think a good move would be to just revert the grappling hook back to how it was, as well as the correct charm, and then like I said, apply those changes to a harder difficulty. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility either. If you look at nightmare mode over in the original Dying Light, we had restrictions like this. We couldn't use the Stasi field projector, you couldn't use certain Easter eggs, you couldn't have infinite stamina during combat or agility. That was reintroduced, where even though it was maxed out, you would have to invest in your legend ranks in order to get rid of that stamina bar again. I think these changes would have made much more sense to be held off, maybe for a new game plus, make it a giant update where we got a new game plus, newer, harder difficulty with new rewards, new forms of content, new things to do. That seems to be the things that people are dying for most right now, extra content, and not anything that would negatively impact the experience that they all have and are enjoying right now. It also begs the question as to, because this is primarily a single player game, game, does anything really need to be nerfed? I'm someone that believes if it's a single player game, there's no online economy or any PvP elements that'll affect any other person's experience if someone is abusing or exploiting anything, then I don't think anything needs to really be nerfed. Yeah, if people want to exploit it, I think that's their prerogative. It does impact their experience. You know, as an example, over in the original Dying Light, I've duplicated pretty much every single thing on one of my saves, which negated the reason for me having to really scavenge for other items. And scavenging is a huge part of Dying Light, so eventually I got bored, created another save, and then if I wanted to play Dying Light quote-unquote authentically, I would just play on my second save. And then if I just want to steam rush through everything, then I would play on my original. In that case, then the only person really missing out is myself. I don't think anyone else would really care that I have 400,000 pieces of scrap or medkits or anything like that. And you could argue that things like that aren't part of Techland's vision for the game. And that is a solid argument, but a counter one might be, well, that should have been thought of, tested, and handled before it was released. Especially in this case where the game was basically left for a solid month, and you're going to take that experience that everyone have become accustomed to, loved, and enjoyed away from them. And I also want to pass that question off to you. If it's primarily a single player game, how do you feel on things being nerfed or changed? And I'm not even speaking strictly in terms of Dying Light 2 here anymore. I'm talking in general. I remember back when Borderlands 3 first released, Gearbox was pretty much doing the same thing. All the weapons that people were using and quote-unquote abusing and found to be overpowered and very useful, they basically cut them all down to size and made them not as viable of options anymore. Do you think changes like that help or hurt the game? Let's talk. Alternatively, how do you think Techland can approach and fix the issue with the Korek and the grappling hook? Do you like the grappling hook? I know, like I said, the majority of people aren't too happy with the grappling hook or the Korek charm, and hopefully this stuff is fixed sooner rather than later. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about all this. I'm sure we'll be seeing more changes and explanations coming to the game hopefully sooner rather than later. But hey, in the meantime, feel free to join the Discord. Link is down below in the pinned comment. We're getting closer and closer to 3,000 members, so if you play Dying Light, Elden Ring, Halo Infinite, Apex Legends, Doom Eternal, or even just want to talk video games in general, if you're looking for a partner or someone to talk shit to about a specific video game, then that's the place. And you can even contact me directly from there. But like always, guys, my name is Cynic. Thank you all so much for watching, but until next time, I'll see you all in the next video.